All right, Melissa, you ready to get this started?
Yeah, let's go.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. We're really excited about having you all here today.
AC is going through this side right here and completely around to the DC.
We're going to go through our 5 top recommendations.
When they actually have the power supply up there, and it could be several years, it could also be a few months.
And TRC, we're a specialty partner, right?
Hey, Melissa, before you go, we're claiming to be experts. We don't just make this claim. How do we train and bring people up to that level of expertise?
Okay, that's a great question.
And when they incorporated the liquid-cooled power supplies into their system, they didn't need to buy a new chiller. They didn't need to do any innovative design on their end.
So they were able to take the existing cooling mechanism they had. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the TRC Power Live Show. I'm Mike Petagna, Vice President here of Engineering here at TRC. Matt, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining on this episode of Power Show Live, where we're going to be talking about products and applications that promote a better environment. My name is Matthew Lago-Marcino, and I'm a regional sales manager here at TRC Electronics.
Awesome. And today's Power Live show will feature applications of products to promote a better environment. And this series was actually inspired by Earth Day, which will be celebrated on April 22nd, this Saturday. The first Earth Day actually began back in 1970. And in this celebration, it took place on April 22nd of that year. 250,000 people showed up at the 5th Avenue in New York City for that event. And over the years, this holiday has now become a global celebration, and sometimes it extends to the entire week for the full 7 days, and it's promoting green living and confronting the climate crisis. So today we'll focus on several products and applications that we've actually supported here at TRC.
Right.
We'll be talking about some of the challenges when we're selecting products for those applications, the technical aspects, and really get into the features that were needed to get those projects successful. So you ready?
Yeah, let's get down to earth.
All right, so let's go. So the first one will be, well, horticulture has been a topic over the years that we've supported in many different ways. The one that we want to focus on here is called microgreens. Microgreens are smaller plants that are actually germinate and actually can be harvested in a couple of weeks. So what's interesting about these plants is you don't need a lot of water. You should use 200 times less water.
Wow.
You don't need pesticides or herbicides, so you're not putting any of those chemicals into the environment.
Wait, so you're saying no hazardous toxins going on my plants?
That's correct.
Oh,
That's
sign
right.
me up.
Not only that, you have no fertilizer, because all the fertilizer, all the nutrients that are needed are actually in the seed. And when you plant the seeds, you're actually planting them on a hemp mesh. So you're not even needing any soil for this.
Wow.
So now if you think about, the plants don't get so big, so you can actually stack multiple columns of plants in a specific row, and there's less space needed. So with that, it becomes an interesting topic here where you're actually producing a very high nutrient plant. What they say is they actually call it the amount of protein per ounce.
Right.
So you're getting you're getting those high nutrients in a very small amount of food.
Wow, I could see the vision where this product's going over the next 10 years, where it can go inside of restaurants, where restaurants are using microgreens for their food, and also in the home as well.
That's right. And actually what our customers are doing here is they're actually building pods that are scalable. So once they have the actual model and they have all the instruction set out, they have the power requirements, which I'm going to show you briefly. Once you have all of that, they can actually scale this, and it can go into just about any environment.
That's amazing. And didn't you personally visit this site?
I did. This site was in Las Vegas.
Oh, nice.
And so here in that site, they're actually now producing food for several of the local restaurants.
That's awesome.
And they're actually taking that model and expanding it.
That's awesome.
So let's talk about some of the some of the actual applications that are involved here. So in general, horticulture has these specific driver applications. The input voltage is typically 120, 240, but you mentioned the other day you've actually seen even higher voltages than that, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
where you're getting into, let's say, areas where you have higher volume air conditioning present in a building, so you could get 480.
That's right.
And
yeah.
then from 480,
Drop it down to 277.
you could get 277. So our drivers will be able to handle that. Then sizing the driver properly. We want to make sure that the driver is sized properly for the specific lighting circuits. Now our applications engineers here will get involved with input fusing, making sure that we have the right fusing specification per UL and per NEC, and we'll assist clients with that. Wire sizing comes in multiple times. It's either on the output side or even on the input side, making sure that our clients get the best advice when it comes to the National Electric Code.
Right.
IP65. You know, that's typical when you're in an environment like this. Not so much so far with this specific one, because we're not splashing water on it. You'll see that the product is actually in a safe place. But if you can imagine in many horticulture environments, you've got water being sprayed, and you want to make sure that the driver is able to handle that.
Yeah, and the greatest part about this is the client came to us looking at a 300-watt solution, and our sales team did an incredible job of listening to their wants and needs and got them on a 60-watt power supply. So they were originally overpaying for a power supply that they didn't need, and we saved them at least $20,000 of power supply cost coming to the TRC. So anybody watching this and needing help selecting a power supply, call 888-612-9514 and call and tell us what you're looking for, and we'll be here to help you.
Right, and listen, we can actually get into just how we actually helped this client with the HLG 240 series. That's when we started with, which was constant voltage operation. As you mentioned, we moved them to the 80-watt version of that product, where the input voltage is 90 to 305. So that 277 we talked about was covered. 24 volts, 10 amps was on the 240. It meets IP65. You've got the temperature range of 50 degrees C. And check out that efficiency. You can get up to 93% with the HLG.
Wow.
And warranty. Talk us through some of that warranty and how that comes into play here.
Yeah, well, Meanwell was the game changer years ago when it came to LED drivers with the warranty. First, they started off with a 5-year warranty, and they did an incredible job of listening to the marketplace and adjusted that warranty to 7 years. And that gives you, the consumer, the user, the confidence that when you're using a power supply, it's gonna work.
That's right. So you ready to talk about the next one?
Let's roll with it.
All right. All right, the next one is hydro power plants. So this is a microgrid where hydropower is fueled by water. It's just running water, making it a clean source of energy. And it's available just about anywhere you have either a dam or running river. And that allows that every state in the United States can actually produce their own energy. And in some places, you can actually get down to producing the energy locally near running water.
Right.
So that helps with many applications such as electric vehicles or any other high power application where you need to put it right there. Now, there have always been discussions about, well, what about the environment? But with the correct implementation of deploying this, you can actually preserve the fish and wildlife with an application such as hydro power plant.
That's incredible. So this device or this big system is going inside of a river, and it's using the energy of the water to create electricity. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. Not only that, the system actually has to compensate to make sure that when you have a drought effect and you have less water flowing, you still are able to produce the electricity needed. On the other hand, what if you have a flood and now your water rates are moving at as much as double or triple the amount?
Right.
You have to be able to manage that in the generating system to make sure that you're not causing any damage to the propeller.
This is great. I love learning about the applications that our clients are using and how they're making a better environment. What do we got next?
So let's look at some of the details here.
Awesome.
Okay, so the application detail here, assistance with AC input wiring. When we were talking to several clients on this, we have to be aware of what's the AC wiring that's going to go into the power supply, because what we have here is a generator that's actually then going to power a power supply that's also going to power either an electric charging vehicle application or battery charging of some sort or some other DC source. So we have to make sure that we provide all that detail on how that wiring is going to be.
Right.
Now these voltages, they can get into 800 to 1,000 volts.
Wow.
So you have to get into now also some detailed startup analysis. Imagine that you got a generator that's spinning unloaded in a water application, and all of a sudden you hit it with a lot of load. If you hit it with too much load all at once, you could end up damaging the impellers. And that could cause, obviously, a problem, damage to the entire system with thousands of dollars. So we had to account for the ability to do startup sequencing and making sure that we have some current limit protection where we actually lowered the current limit not to cause that generator to be loaded all at once.
And
of course,
this is incredible. It sounded like a custom solution over here.
It kind of is in a way. We actually were able to use standard product, but when you're getting into the design, many times it's not just selecting the product, but we actually talk to the client and ask those questions to make sure that the client understands some of the other aspects associated when you integrate the power supply with the application. So actually what this thing looked like at the end was they needed 1,000 volts. So we couldn't find a power supply that did 1,000 volts. But what we did was we took the SCH product line and we were able to load it with 3-phase on each of these products. We put them in a series configuration, and then that whole power goes to the battery charge controller. From that point, the customer takes it from there, and we added some soft start circuit control so that when you actually do the initial load, you're bringing the supply's current limit down. We only had to actually control one unit because they're all in series, and that was able to get them the soft start they needed.
That's incredible. Mike, let me ask you this. Based on your years of engineering experience, to do something customized from start to finish, what would the total cost be involved in that?
So that's a 30,000 watt product, right?
Right.
You're talking at least $150,000.
Wow, $150,000.
And about 18 months of design and prototyping and UL and all the other functions they have to go through.
Right, and right now with a product like this that's so innovative, it's all about the key to market. So if you're building something custom from start to finish, you're losing valuable time where you could be introducing this product to the market. And that's why an off-the-shelf solution like the SHP 10,000 series is so crucial. Right. And they're putting 3 in series, correct, to get between 800 to 1,000 volts DC output. That's a big output.
And almost 30,000 watts. Actually, let's get into some of the detail. We have a slide here. So the SHP 10K 380L was used. This is a conduction-cooled, water-cooled base plate cooling application. We have 3-phase inputs, so the unit already takes 340 to 530 volts directly from a generator, and it's adjustable, so we can get the actual voltage required for that battery controller. And the battery controller takes care of all the battery management.
Right.
It's also 96.5% efficient. And now if you think about an application where you have it near a microgrid, once you install it, you really don't want to go and service this thing or have to replace it. So Meanwell's backing this product up with a 5-year warranty.
That's amazing.
Yeah. You ready to talk about the next one?
Let's go with it.
All right, the next one is fuel cell technology. And fuel cells have actually been around since the first space flights. Okay. Because we needed that technology in space to generate electrical power with hydrogen. And fuel cells have actually come a long way where they actually can be powered with either hydrogen or a fossil fuel. So how does that make it more earth friendly? Right. Well, fossil fuels burning or being consumed in a fuel cell will give you an emission of water vapor. So if you can imagine that you're not getting the smog and the smoke, instead you're getting some water vapor out of it. They also don't contain any lead, like lead acid batteries. They don't need any ventilation required when you're trying to charge them. And they also can lower the operational costs when you're using fuel cells, because the fuel can actually be charged within minutes as opposed to waiting for battery chargers to charge those applications for long periods of time.
Wow, that's amazing.
So when we had a customer that had this requirement, this was one where we had to get a little involved. And the reason behind that was fuel cells have various different input voltages. So we needed a DC to DC converter. And maybe you have something you could share with us on a specific client that had this application.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to go into a little detail here about this. So this client, one of the clients that are building the fuel cell technology, contacted us here where they're already using a discrete DC to DC converter overseas that they absolutely loved. The solution was working well for them. However, they couldn't, the manufacturer of that DC to DC converter could not keep up to the capacity and demand that this client was demanding, which was over a couple thousand units per month. Mm-hmm. So we took a look in this, and they threw a curveball in there that they wanted conformal code in, but absolutely we can make that happen here. So we made this happen, and the biggest thing here with this client is not only were they looking for a DC-to-DC solution to meet their power supply needs to charge their fuel cells, they wanted a partner that was going to communicate to them, keeping open lines of communication, because we like to say one thing around here, the biggest deal breaker in a relationship is communication. It could be a lack of communication, or someone's not listening to you or hearing your wants and needs. And when you work with us at TRC, we're going to hear you, we're going to understand what you're looking for, and we're going to put you on a solution that solves your problem.
That's right. It's always asking those critical questions. How many times we ask a question to a client and they're like, I didn't even think about that.
Right.
Right. And that's when we know that we are actually on to finding the right solution for them.
Yeah, and then they wanted 2,000 pieces in 2 or 3 months with our amazing partner. Meanwhile, we made it happen, and they're up and running.
All right, let's show some of the details. So typically in an application such as a fuel cell, here we had a warehouse vehicle. So again, you're in a warehouse environment. Fuel cells are being used instead of vehicles that are now gas-powered, diesel-powered.
Right.
So think about the smog and just the environment itself. Is you don't want that gas-powered solution to be in an environment such as a warehouse. There's no ventilation there, or little ventilation. We also need moderate vibration and shock requirements. We needed 24 volts at 1,000 watts just to operate the electrical motors that are on there. So we needed constant current limiting protection. We couldn't go with a hiccup mode, otherwise the unit may not start up the motor. We need wide range DC input because fuel cells have a wide range. Space limitations, and also, when you get into fuel cells, it could be anywhere from 19 volts to a much higher voltage, right?
That's right. And hey, could we get a zoom in on this product too and show them?
Oh, absolutely.
Phil, come over here. Zoom in on this. Take a look at this. 1,000 watts. Take a look. Boom. Zoom in. Zoom in. There we go. 1,000 watts. You got your input and output connections right there. Fan on the back for cooling. Incredible solution. In comparison, this is a 200 watt power supply. And look at the size. Got my 2 hands, 2 power supplies. This is the one we're looking for, the SD1000. Thank you, Phil.
All right, we have a little bit more specifics here. We'll bring them up on the screen right here. And this is how we solve that problem. So the SD1000 is 24 volts, 40 amps, constant current limiting, so you don't have that issue with inrush current. We have 19 volts to 72 volts input, which means that this product can actually be operated in that wide range, and that's a pretty wide range for a standard off-the-shelf product. There is some vibration when you're dealing with warehouse equipment, especially when you're picking up pallets. So this product does have a 2G vibration. It's very high density, as we just saw, and the product also has a warranty, a high warranty.
That's correct.
All right, so we're ready for the next one?
Yeah, what do we got, Mikey? What do we got?
All right, the next one. Now this is an interesting one that has been coming up in the marketplace. Laser weeding technology.
Yes, are they burning the weed or are they zapping it? Like, tell us more about that.
All right, well actually there's 2 ways to do this. You can actually, you can provide electrical current into the root. In this case, what they're doing is there's an AI function that actually identifies this is the plant that they want to zap.
Wow. And
they use a carbon dioxide laser to kill the weed.
Okay.
Now, this is a laser that can actually be used in the daytime or at nighttime. So depending on how the schedule is with that specific farm, they can implement this at any time.
Wow.
So what this does is you don't have any more pesticides to deal with. I'm sorry, not pesticides, but herbicides in this case, where you want to either prevent the weeds from growing or kill the weeds without killing the plant, which is contaminating the soil. So one of the things that we had to identify in a laser weeding power supply application is we need a DC input. And DC inputs are, when you're working with DC inputs, especially with trying to power an LED system, there aren't a lot of DC input power supplies that you would think of. In this case, we actually were able to use one of our products that is normally AC input that can be used in a DC input application with the right circuit breaker.
That's right, and that's a very overlooked spec on a lot of our AC to DC solutions is that they actually can handle a high DC input. And if you look on the label, the AC to DC power supply, it won't show you that DC input. Contact us or go on a data sheet and we could show you exactly the DC input that it can handle.
That's right, and we'll select the right circuit breaker for that, so we ensure that you meet an NEC rules, and also to ensure that you protect the rest of the system from any type of overcurrent.
And before you go on, a lot of people watching this are probably wondering, why doesn't the label have the DC to DC input on it?
The label doesn't have the DC input on it because it is specifically actually tested for UL 8750 or UL 62368.
Got it.
And in those applications, there really isn't any DC input that was allotted. But it's also because you have to actually have a special circuit breaker.
Okay.
And so many manufacturers don't actually go and perform that extra certification. It's kind of like an extra.
Right.
So in that case, the way we handle it is in the final inspection of the UL, we actually make sure that they have the right circuit breaker in there. And based on that, then it can meet the UL as a system.
Beautiful.
All right, so let's move on to the next one. We have battery testing and energy recycling.
All right.
So the charger for battery testing here is you need a system that can actually charge the batteries, and then you need a system that has to discharge the batteries, because you can imagine with the proliferation of electric vehicles and many other high power battery devices, there's a need right now to not only just to manufacture high power batteries, but a way to charge them and discharge them when you're actually testing them. Now, the typical way to do it is you charge them with a traditional power supply, you discharge them using resistors.
Wow.
Or using some other types of loads. So when you discharge them with resistors, you're actually you're wasting the power and increasing the heat, because all that energy goes to heat. This client actually wanted one unit. It was a preferred option for them. And the biggest thing they needed was isolation, making sure that the unit was isolated from the input to the output. And they also wanted to have a three-phase compatible solution.
Got it. And then the old way of doing this, what happens to that power when you're pumping it into the resistor?
So what normally happens is your power is actually dissipated into the air and it's wasted. There's no way to recover it.
Okay.
So what this client actually wanted was a way to provide AC power to charge the batteries, but then once the batteries were charged, how to get that energy to go back into the same supply.
Wow.
The supply would then convert the DC back into AC and put it onto the grid.
So this power supply is going both ways. It's taking the input out and sending it back in when it's done.
That's correct. Yeah,
Wow.
It's taking the input, converting it to DC, and then once the batteries are charged, it has to put that DC power back into the grid, which means you have to convert it into AC and be able to tie it to a grid tie and actually meet all the specifications for that.
Wow.
So what we did there was we provided a solution called the BIC 2200. So the BIC 2200, the customer wanted three-phase, but we didn't actually have a three-phase solution that could do this. But the BIC 2200 is 2200 watts. So we have three phases here. We have a phase A going to one of the products, a phase B going to the next one, and a phase C going to the following one. So these are actually connected to battery management modules, which are DC to DC converters that actually then perform the battery management.
Right.
So they're the ones that are going to tell the power supply eventually is when to go into the different mode. So while the power supply is charging the batteries, the battery management is allowing power to go in. And when they say, okay, well, it's time now to go through that cycle of discharging, we're able to go and reverse it the other way. And then each one of these phases goes back to their respective phase, back to the grid.
Wow. Can I share something about this application?
Sure.
Yeah, so this product was introduced into the marketplace a couple years ago. And when you're partnered with TRC, one of the many amazing things that we're going to do to you is communicate and introduce you new products. And this salesperson introduced this product to the specific client, and they had no idea that this solution existed, which solved their problem. So at TRC, all we do is power supplies. We eat, breathe, and sleep power supply solutions. So anytime you have any questions or have an application, get in contact with us. We're here to help you. We're here to give you all the information that you need.
That's awesome. So let's move on to the next one.
Let's roll.
All right, so the BIC 2200.
Tell them everything, Mike.
I'll tell them as much as I can. So the AC input is 180 to 264. DC outputs that are available, so we have several models of this, and that's the actual product right here, which we'll show momentarily. We have a 12 volt, 24, 48, and 96. It's up to 2200 watts, and we do have that bidirectional operation, which is fast switching within 1 millisecond between an AC to DC or vice versa. And then an important feature that's essential for grid tie inverters is anti-islanding operation.
Right.
So you may want to know, what is that?
Yeah, what is that?
So anti-islanding operation is an operation that prevents the inverter from dumping energy back into the grid in case the grid goes down. So if you can imagine, if the grid goes down and you have workers that are trying to repair the AC grid, they actually have to control to turn off power in specific areas. Well, if you have one of these actually pumping energy into the grid that's uncontrolled by the power company, you could potentially hurt someone or kill someone on the line.
Wow.
So what this product does is it detects when that grid power goes down, and in effect, you're not able to function anymore during the grid down environment because you don't want to cause an injury to a worker.
That's for sure.
All right, so ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's go. Or we're gonna get a close up on this. Check it out. Compare it to the SD1000.
Let me just stop the share for a second. There you go.
Here we go. Right hand, BIC 2200. Left hand, SD1000. And we got 2200 watts in here, right?
That's right.
Wow. Give us a call at 888-612-9514 for any questions or information on this. We'd be happy to help.
You know, Matt, one of the things we talked about earlier is that for all our participants that are sticking around towards the end, what do we got for them?
Oh, we got a special deal for them.
Yeah.
Yes. Stay tuned.
So stay tuned. We're going to be showing that.
Actually, the president of the company, Steven, texted me that he wasn't sure if he wanted to do this, but he says, you know what, let's let him have it.
So we just let him do it?
Yeah, we're gonna, but keep going.
All right.
Hey guys, if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat as well. We're monitoring the chat for questions. We had one from Tommy. If you guys can check, it says, is the DC input voltage the same as the AC input voltage? Maybe we can get him unmuted and
Hello, Tommy.
that question.
Hey guys. Hey.
Hello, Tommy.
Hey, back when you were talking about the power supplies being able to take in both AC or DC, are they the same level? So if it can take in like what 120 volts AC, can it take in 120 volts DC? How's that work?
So the power supply can actually sense what the input grid is going to be. So in this case, the application that we talked about, the power supply is able to provide 208 back to the grid at that point.
Okay. Oh no, I was actually asking it back before when you were saying that it could take in both either AC or DC, even though it didn't say it on the data sheet that it could take in DC voltage. It could
Talking
take
about
it.
the AC to DC power supply,
okay.
I can take a DC input.
All right, so
Yeah,
Tom,
yeah.
so just articulate that a little bit more so I can answer it as best
Sure.
as I
So
can.
the AC voltage, it says it can take in what 120 volts to say 240 volts.
Right.
So AC.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, perfect question. If I remember correctly, with the DC input, the DC input's actually going to be whatever the AC is times the square root of 2, which means you can get up to 430 volts, 431 volts DC input as a maximum voltage for many of those AC to DC LED drivers.
Okay, interesting. All right, cool. Good to know. Thanks.
Yeah. But
Great
it's
question.
important that when you have an application like that we're also talking about DC input fusing to ensure that we have a DC fuse that's rated or a DC circuit breaker that's rated for that.
Rated for DC. Good. Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right, great. So actually, since we're on the topic of LED drivers, and you know, we have many different types of applications that we've actually helped clients with in multiple industries within the LED industry. Should we start bringing up, we could start talking about some of the LED drivers right now?
Yeah, and before we go into that, we're actually going to be at Light Fair May 23rd, 24th, and 25th at Jacob Javits Center. displaying all of our amazing LED driver products. So anybody out there, come visit our booth. We'll be happy to talk to you, have a conversation, and answer any questions you have. And Sam, if you could, drop our booth number in there too.
All right. So let's talk about LEDs and LED lighting. So LED lighting's really started to take off in the late 2007, 2008. At the time when the Department of Energy started to highlight some of the LED driver technology, and they actually created these contests to get these LED lighting applications and technology moving. 22% of the electricity usage back then was from lighting applications. So what they realized is that there was a lot of energy consumption that could be eliminated with the use of a more efficient light source. We found this solid state lighting, which is another term that's used, could actually do that because it was more efficient and it was able to provide the same amount of light without as much energy. So just to give you some contrast, in 2022, that number went down to 5% of the electricity usage from lighting. And this was commercial, residential, and complete total from where it was in 2008.
Wow.
So how do we do that? Well, we did that with the usage of LED technology, but also LED drivers had to be more efficient and had to be created in such a way that they can drive a semiconductor.
Right.
It's a completely different technology. So that's why LED drivers started to become very popular. So what are some of the applications that we get involved in now? So we have high bay lighting, street lights and parking lots, architectural, accent lighting, which is strip lighting, where you have the basic under cabinet lighting or any type of colored lighting applications, cove, or residential and commercial general lighting. As a matter of fact, you had a project recently about a parking lot application. Can you?
Yeah, we've got a lot of LED projects that we've worked on here. Strong chance if you're looking at an LED fixture, there's a MIMO driver in there, and we probably helped them. Mm-hmm. And recently we helped a client with a parking garage light where it also has occupant sensors on it. So it's going to sense when there's an open parking space, and it's going to send a signal down to the main level to tell the person that's coming in the park that, hey, go to level 4, there's open spaces.
Right. So what's happening here is we now have controlled light.
Yeah.
It's no longer where you're going into an office building, and even at night, just for security purposes, they keep the building lit up, and there was no way to control it. Or in order to control it, you had to turn off the specific lights.
Yeah.
So with LEDs, you're able to actually control the light or even dim the light to a certain level and prevent the light from going away completely, so it's still safe enough to actually walk through. Or with a proximity sensor, what happens? You walk through it and
turns on,
and the light comes on. So the energy savings is to put the light when you need it, and when you don't need it, not have any light at all or very little.
That's right. And then also another type of application you didn't mention that we should be mentioning is grow light in horticulture. That's big right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So with horticulture lighting, that adds another aspect to it, because these are lighting applications where we're not looking for light just for visual, but we're actually have light at specific color temperatures that actually are attractive to the plant and enhance the plant to grow, similar to the way the sun allows the plant to grow.
That's right. And then also in those horticulture systems that we're involved in, we're not only helping them with the LED array with putting a driver in, but we're also giving them AC to DC solutions that are powering the fans that cool that entire shelf. Because imagine this, guys, in a warehouse, you have a big open space and you're racking up vertical farms with plants, tomatoes, marijuana, herbs, whatever it is. It's getting big. It's 2023. The space, there's so much available warehousing space, right?
Right, exactly. And by bringing all this indoors, again, what it does for the environment is you're not putting all those chemicals into the soil, and you're not emitting the chemicals into the air as well.
That's right.
All right, so let's look at some of those in more deeper applications.
And then real quick, Light Fair again. May 23rd, May 24th, May 25th, Jacob Javits Center, booth number 927. That's booth number 927. Come check us out.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So here's some of the things that we don't talk about too much about when it comes to LED lighting, specifically because we're more in power. But the light is directional. So when we get into the optics of the light, since the light is directional, you're pointing the light exactly to what you need, where you need it, which means that the less light pollution going up into the sky. So think about the sky. You go hunting, right? You're in upstate New York, you're right, and
Yeah.
you go and and you look in the sky, and what do you see? You see stars. But if you're in the city, do you see those stars?
Nope.
No, you don't, because of the
light
additional
pollution.
light pollution. Exactly. But what that also does is it also creates problems for dark sky initiatives, which is we have these high-powered telescopes that are looking into the sky. They're actually looking for hazards such as asteroids that are always, it's always an initiative to make sure that we know what's going on up there and what's coming at us.
That's right.
Then the other part is the dimming, which further, as we mentioned before, further reduces energy consumption. And with LEDs, you can actually dim much better than you could with traditional incandescent bulbs, because LEDs have that technology where it's current controlled, and the current going through that semiconductor gives you the light output that you want.
Wow.
All right, so let's talk about some of the LED requirements that come up. We have LED requirements such as the input, which is 120, 240, and 277. The units must be high efficient because, again, part of the efficiency initiative, you cannot have a driver that's not efficient powering an efficient line source. The dimming functions have to be compatible to what's out there. So we have 0 to 10, 1 to 10, DMX, DALI, Triac ELV, which is the older dimming technology. This is a dimming technology where you have the dial in the dining room and you're turning up the chandelier and you're getting the right light level.
We were actually talking about that with the team yesterday about Triac dimming. It's really popular in retrofit applications in old buildings where the installer wants to just use the same wire that's already in the wall, so they want to use a Triac dimmable. But if you want to go higher power, you got to go 0 to 10, 1 to 10 volt dimming, which means you're going to have to run a new wire all up through those walls.
Absolutely, and that's why we do have Triac dimming drivers up to 50 watts right now.
Right.
And we have actually drivers that can do both Triac dimming and 0 to 10 to be able to address some of those applications, some of those older installs. The lighting industry needs long warranty, and they also require high temperature environments. Because if you can imagine, one of the things that LEDs do great is they provide a lot of light, but they also have conductive properties. So in order to get the heat out, you usually have to conduct it away from the LED. And guess what? Where is the driver going to be? It's going to be pretty close to the LED heat sink. So the driver has to withstand high temperature environments. We also have surge protection. This comes up a lot, right?
Oh yeah, all the time.
So if you think about the environments, some of the environments that are indoor, maybe not so much of an issue, but let's talk about parking lot lights, tunnel lighting, street lighting. They're going to be in the environment.
Wall packs.
I'm sorry? And
Wall
wall
packs.
packs, right. They're going to be in an environment where they're much closer to the transformer or the input that's coming into the building. So if there's a lightning strike, there's less impedance that's protecting that spot from wherever it's happening outdoors to the actual driver. So we have to make sure that the driver has some surge protection in it.
That's right. And then anybody that has drivers out there and they're not sure why their driver failed, we do offer services here where we can evaluate that power supply for you and tell you exactly how it failed.
Right, exactly. Now, even though that a driver does have surge protection, the driver's surge protection is designed in a way that it will handle surge protection that's hopefully protected somewhere down line with the surge protector. Because ultimately you want the surge protector to take the hit and not the driver. The driver should be able to withstand multiple surges. But if you don't have the surge protection, then the driver becomes the surge protector.
That's right.
Right, and it can cause damage. And then the final thing is long life expectancy. The LED industry demands that drivers have a long life or a long warranty because many of them, they're going to be installed. And the whole promise of LEDs was your low efficiency, but high life expectancy. So you didn't have to go and change out the bulbs the way you normally would have to.
Nobody has time to go out there and change a driver or bulb every year. You
Right,
want it
and
out there in peace of mind and just go do your thing.
Exactly. All right, so let's look at some of the highlighted products that we have. And in this one, we have the XLG series. This is Meanwell's actually newest driver line, which addresses many of those applications. It's 100 to 305 volts AC, which means it handles all of the input voltage variations that we have. especially here in the US. It's 92 to 94% efficient. We have the 0 to 10, 1 to 10 PWM resistive dimming options available for the specific model that has dimming. And here, look at the surge protection. Now we're at 6 kV surge protection and 4 kV surge protection differential. This allows us to be able to handle more of that surge that comes in. And also we have adjustable constant current, which this driver actually puts us into an application where we can get constant power out of it. So what does constant power mean? That the driver is actually going to provide constant power over a longer period of input current. And that means that a customer that has several different light fixtures will be able to actually use the same driver in multiple light fixtures. And maybe you can share.
Yeah, all my buyer friends listening out there, less SKUs means less part numbers you have to worry about, and you can just bring in one part number that you can adjust to different current settings that achieves the result and the outcome you need for your driver.
Right, and then we have constant voltage, we have constant current options available here with these models. And I'd like to just highlight this model real quick, the XLG, if you could bring up the camera view.
Yeah, and the XLG, this product was introduced in the marketplace in response to their HLG series. The HLG series by Meanwell is their flagship LED driver product. It's an amazing product, 90 to 305 VAC, 7-year warranty, constant voltage, constant current. However, there's some applications out there where they were a little price sensitive, so Meanwell responded with the XLG series, where you're gonna get that same brand, a little lower cost, you're gonna have a 5-year warranty on it, and it comes in constant voltage models. It was 12 and 24 volts DC, but I got exclusive insider news that they're coming out with a 48 volt as well.
That's awesome. And you want to put that product back up and now spin it around, because I want to show another aspect of it. Turn it the other way.
Oh, you want?
All right, so here's where your current adjustment is. And notice that Meanwell got creative here. They actually put the current adjustment on the bottom of the unit. And the reason why they did that
There you go,
is
Phil.
this allows us to get IP67 on the product, because once that boot is on and the XLG is now connected to the base, that boot is squished, and that IP67 allows us to get that submersion spec of up to 30 minutes. So if you have a lighting fixture that is that could take in water potentially for short periods of time before it drains out through the drain holes, this would be a perfect example of where you want to use that application. And also, just to bring up the constant power aspect of it, what that does is it allows us to be able to adjust the current in multiple places without sacrificing the amount of power the unit can produce. And what that means is less SKUs to the manufacturer.
Right.
So imagine you have a manufacturer has a high bay light, but they also have another light source that they're building. And if they do this correctly, they can actually use one product, which means one SKU. And what does that do for your customer?
Allows them, simplifies the purchasing process.
It simplifies the purchasing process. It allows them to buy more volume and leverage the volume discounts that they would get.
That's right.
with more of that product. So that covers the LED lighting. We have one more application to bring up.
Ooh, let's show them. We got
All
one more
right,
treat.
And that is something that's been around for quite some time. And that is the Department of Energy Level 6 compliance. So this is a topic we hear a lot about in adapters. And the reason is that there are about 5 billion external power supply adapters in the world. Matt, if I were to ask you right now, how many chargers do you have in your home that are plugged in, but not with any phone or any device?
Including my wife?
Yeah.
Oh, we're probably about 10 or 12.
Right, 10 to 12, and then multiply that by the number of computer.
Well, they're strategically put in certain locations for the phone, so this thing never dies. Or
Exactly,
this thing.
right? So we always want to have that for convenience, but now if you have a power supply plugged in without the right provisions, even though it's plugged in and it has no load, it's going to dissipate power. So could you imagine when you have 5 billion of these power supplies that are now plugged in, they're not doing anything, they're not providing any value, they're just there for convenience so that you could just plug in your phone. If they don't have some type of no load power consumption, they can cause a dramatic increase in the world demand for electrical power. So the Department of Energy actually launched an initiative many years ago that all products that are in this type of external application must have no load power consumption provisions where they can lower the power consumption. And then of course they still have to be efficient. So when you plug them in, there's an efficiency standard that has to be met in order to be able to sell. And as a matter of fact, there are some import laws too, right? If we don't meet this requirement, can we bring the product into the
No, you can't. And we've bailed customers out with that, where they didn't realize it, that they thought they were getting a deal that was too good to be true from a no-name China brand out there, where they're paying $5 for a 60-watt, 12-volt adapter. They brought it to the port, found out that they can't bring it in because it doesn't meet level 6 efficiency. So we got them on a solution here quickly.
Yeah, and actually there's a chart that we talk about, and we actually train internally on this chart for our sales team members, and we provide this to our clients. But here's the level 6 compliance details. And what it does is actually splits it up into several different power levels. So the lower the power the product is, obviously will have a different curve, and the minimum power in no load mode is 0.1 watts. So if you're under a watt, if you're 1 watt or under, you have less than 0.1 watts of allowed usage. As you get into higher powers, like the 49 watt to 250 watt range, then the no load power consumption can go up to no more than 0.21. Right. And the efficiency has to be over 87%. And then for higher power products, you can get up to 87.5% and allowed up to half a watt. So anything that's 250 watt, more than 250 watts would have that requirement. So the level 6 has become a big deal for us. And of course we have power, so all of the products that we have to meet level 6 compliance. It's going to be one of the requirements. You would think, well, how many adapters would we have that can actually do this?
Right.
So we're going to show you three units today, and we picked 3. There's a hell of a lot more, but we wanted to pick 3 unique ones to show you, and each one of them has its own special provision. The first one we're going to bring up is the TT Electronics Power Partners brand. This is the PSAW.
65 watts.
And that's what makes it unique, is that it's one of the higher power levels that we have that doesn't require, it's not a lumping cord, it's actually a plug-in that you can actually plug directly into the wall.
That's right.
So it meets level 6, it's greater than 87.5% efficiency, it has all the overload, over voltage and over temperature protections, and it comes with interchangeable plugs. That means that just by changing the plug, you can actually adapt it to the country that you're going to be using the product.
That's right.
The next one that we have that we want to highlight here is the XP AQM 200 series, and we'll bring it up just momentarily. This is a 200 watt medical adapter. Now look at those efficiencies. You're going to get up to 93.7%. You have all the overloads and over temperature requirements. And of course, what makes this one unique, it's a 100 microamp leakage current max and a 3-year warranty. So I'm going to just stop sharing so you can actually show that product right there.
And it's got your DC plug on there, 4-pin connector. Pretty common for a higher powered external adapter of over, I'd say 120, 160 watts or more.
Right. And also the size, it's pretty dense for a product of that power level.
That's right.
All right, and then the last one that we have here is the Meanwell GST 360 series. This is one of the newer products that were launched. And the Meanwell product, in this case, not only does it have 360 watts, which is pretty high for an external.
Very high.
But you can get 450 watts peak for 3 seconds. So if you have applications such as 3D printers or any type of application that needs a little bit more power just to get that motor started, you can get that peak, that can come in really handy.
I see Ralph D private message us here, Ralph Rizzaretto. He had us a question about DC plugs. Yes, you can get modified DC plugs with minimal order quantities. Just send it over to us and we'll be happy to look into that for you. And we do this all the time with our clients, where maybe they want a 2.5 by 2.5 by 5.5 millimeter instead of a 2.1, or whatever it may be, whatever connector that you want to use that accommodates your application. Let us know. We'd be happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there are some DC plug applications where we can do right here in our value-added center, and for those more intricate ones, we can work with our manufacturing partner, and we can get that's solved. We can get right into the details of that.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, are you ready to share the promotion?
Yeah, Steven texted me, said, unleash it. So we're gonna.
All right, here it is.
Yeah, so our purchasing team has done an incredible job at TRC Electronics. As we mentioned, all we do here is power supplies, and our purchasing team has leveraged our expertise and built an amazing relationship with our suppliers, where we brought in a bunch of product here that's in-house here in Pennsylvania. We have over $30 million worth of power supplies in stock, and they negotiated some really special rates on these products. So in return, we're gonna give you a 20% off discount on any product that's in stock, 20% off of your order. That's 20%.
That's awesome. We have a chat there. I can't read it completely.
Yeah, well, that's from Milos. We'll get him in a second here.
All right.
Everybody scan that QR code below or use the code SAVE20 for the 20% off.
Awesome. So at this point, Matt, we're going to open up the floor. If there's any questions, let me just stop that for a second, and we'll make sure we'll bring that code back up. Or if everyone's got their phones, now would be a good time to scan that code in, or leave it up for a couple of seconds longer.
Yeah, we're good. I believe we had a question there from one of our
there we go.
participants.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so one of the, we actually ended up using in one of our products lately a TRC AC to DC power supply, knowing that it can obviously accept a DC voltage, as you guys mentioned before, square root of 2 over the AC rating. However, and the reason we did that is we actually had an old system that had a 120 volt DC bus. We actually ended up having to pick a unit that had a label rating for DC input, even though it could actually do, most of them could do DC or AC, they don't care. The UL or whatever regulation body you use to certify your product generally does not accept a DC input unless it's actually rated. So my question is, do you guys ever, when you do a label for your product, do you actually say input 120, 100 to 240 AC or DC?
Okay, so yeah, well, the product itself comes from the manufacturer, but what we've done in the past is when you're going to the agency lab, the certification is actually going to be done on a system level. So what we have to do is and many times we'll actually talk to the UL inspector as well to work through some of these issues by providing them with what the UL report is saying on the actual manufacturer side, and then also making sure that the customer is going to put a DC rated circuit breaker to the input. So it's not just at the component level at that point, but it's the entire, it would be the system itself. And this is something that, we could work with you if you're still in that situation, and we can get into more detail. And in this case, what kind of unit was it? What manufacturer were you using?
Well, I believe we actually picked one of your units that was actually rated for DC input.
Oh, it was rated.
Label, but that was one of the few. Most of them are just rated have a label for AC input. Right. Whereas there was a couple that were actually rated for you. I guess we could have contacted you guys and went through the whole, but it was a lot easier to actually certify the system as with the label, with the proper label.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, if you have a product that actually is rated for DC, it's going to be faster. But what we've been doing here is looking and actually being aware that the DC specification on the data sheet is there. And the reason why they don't actually do the DC rating is because it requires a different type of circuit protection inside the power supply.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's awesome. Thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, are there any other questions in the chat?
I think that's all, Mike.
All right. Well, we would like to thank everybody for joining us here today. We hope that we provided you insightful information, especially on all these products and applications that promote a better environment. Remember to stay tuned. We also will have this recording on YouTube and on the social media platforms. So if you've missed anything, you want to go back and check it out, and give us a call here at 888-612-9514 for any type of application or power supply question you have.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. We want to help you. If you're a buyer that's purchasing power supplies or an engineer designing in power supplies in your systems, please contact us. We want to help you. We're here to serve you. Please give us a call at 888-612-9514. Thank you so much for joining today.
And see you next month.